Awesome. So from our main menu, from the home page when you guys have logged in, I'm going to go right to the Forms tab and Form List. This is the only place we can access our forms in the system, so that makes it pretty easy. Now, from your form list, I'm making some notes to myself here. From our forms list, you'll notice you created this volunteer interest, this example form. From this volunteer interest form, a couple things that we can go ahead and look at by hovering over this particular form. We could edit the form. That'll bring us into the form builder where we can make changes, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment. Taking this form, maybe somebody may call you guys on the phone and say, hey, can you guys just register me through this form for me? Can you take the membership application for me? Or it may be that you receive somehow a paper application that you might have had floating around, in which case you can take that paper application and put it in the system for them as well. And so you would just do that by taking this form. Taking this form will allow you to choose the member from your database, or you could proceed as a new profile. And literally, you're just proceeding as that person. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. You would just click on the person? Okay.
Exactly. So maybe Bob called you guys. Whoops. Let's say there was a Bob, and he called you and said, can you guys please register me as a new member? I want to be a member with you guys. I can't figure out how to take it online. Can you sign me up? You can say absolutely. If he's a new member, you're just going to proceed as a new profile, and it's going to take you into the form where you can just fill out all of Bob's information for him. So you could keep him on the phone and ask him the different fields as you work through the form.
Wait, hey, Andrew, can you go back to that, please, real quick?
Yeah.
So we either pick them from the profile list, or we go down to that green button and click proceed as new profile?
Exactly.
Okay.
If you click somebody from the list, you can proceed as that person.
Gotcha.
In addition, we've got these 3 horizontal dots over here on the right. We can also copy a form. Copying a form is going to be y'all's very best friend, because every time you need to create a new form, instead of necessarily having to start from scratch, you can just copy an existing form. And then the last piece to this is you can delete a form. Deleting forms will not be possible once a form submission has been submitted on a form. So your forms will be used to collect information on your members and stored in their profiles. If you received form submissions and then deleted that form, you would be mass deleting all that information out that you collected, and you wouldn't want to do that. So that's why once form submissions have been completed for a form, you can no longer delete that form. Any questions on that?
No.
Not me.
Okay. All right. A couple of other things that I wanted to point out here with our forms. Since you won't be able to delete forms when form submissions have been made on them, you're going to have a ton of forms in here over time. And so we would just want to use our drop down, which we have in the middle of the screen here under the status. We can publish forms from here, but we can also archive a form. So if there's a form that you're not using anymore, you can't delete it, right? But you can archive it. And then if you ever wanted to go back and revisit those archive forms, you could select show archive forms, and that's going to show you all the forms that are archived. You can also search your forms by searching in the top right-hand corner. And then your forms will always be listed in alphabetical order in this area as well. So that's just all to help with organization. Any questions on those pieces?
Not me.
Oh, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new form together. So you could copy a form to create a new one, but you can also just select create a form. We're going to name our form. Now, the name that I'm naming my form right now is internal. This is not what your members will see. This is just for you guys to know what this form is. You also, at this point, would choose what type of form you're creating. By selecting what type of form you're creating, that's going to be bringing in the body of the form for you. So if we're creating a membership application, we're going to check membership. That's going to bring in the membership section of our form for us. If we are making an event registration form, we're going to check that it's for an event registration. That's going to bring in the event section. Now, you could potentially create something that doesn't apply to either one, and you would just check neither. That way, we would bring in a general section.
Where's the neither box?
So the what box?
You said we could check neither, and I don't see that here.
I'm just not checking anything.
Oh, okay.
See?
Gotcha.
So I could check one of these. We could use a form for both, or if I'm using neither, I would just check. I wouldn't check anything.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, since this is for membership, I'm going to check that we're using this for membership, and we're going to select Save. And that's going to bring us into our form builder. So if I wanted to go look at that form list, I can use that arrow in the top right. Here's our form list, membership application. There's that volunteer. I'm going to go ahead and publish our membership application. And I can select Edit, and that'll bring me back into the membership application that we're creating. Now, our membership application, or I should say every form that we create, is broken up into two columns. We've got a left-hand column, we've got a right-hand column. The right-hand column is like a rough draft. So this is what your form will look like, but not in the template. It's not pretty yet. So if we wanted to take a look at this form, I'm going to open a new, when you guys test forms, you're always going to want to use an incognito window because you don't want the system recognizing you as an admin. So I can go to this specific form. I know that the alias is what's behind this /. It's membership application, and I can show you why. Whoops, I spelled it wrong. I can show you how I know that. Application. So the first part of the form, and this is similar to what your members will see. Of course, we're still waiting for your template, but this is similar to what your forms, what your members will be seeing when they take your form. This is going to be the first step, is logging in. If your member is logging in as an existing user, they'll put in their username and password. If they're logging in as a new user, they're going to put in their email, and then a pop-up will come on the screen so they can put in their password. So like I said earlier, looking at it again on the back end, this is what the login section looks like to us in the form builder. So it's just not that pretty. It's not pretty yet. It's not in the template, but it has the same fields that I can see on the front end. So the login section is the first section of our form. I'm going to go ahead and take us through the different forms that we see. Now, I mentioned when I created this form, when I typed in membership application, this is not the name that your members see, right? What they're seeing is login. So they'll be seeing whatever name is on each tab before each section as they navigate through the form. So login may not make sense to them. You may want this to say something a little bit more descriptive. So I can use the properties button, and I may want to call this login for the NGHIMA membership application. This is going to populate on our tab, and now if I were to update the front end of this.
Hey, Adrian,
yes,
can
sir.
we just call that NGHIMA new membership application?
Absolutely.
So we distinguish it from renewals.
Yeah. Do you want me to get rid of the rest of this? Oh, I see what you're saying. So internally, or are you talking about what your members say?
Well, actually both.
So I can say NGHIMA new
membership application. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to show you in just a little bit where you can change what the form for you guys is called as well, so that you'll know the difference between the two.
Okay.
All right, so we've got our login section here. Now, something I want to point out is when I clicked on the properties for this login section, it's showing me the element properties tab over here on the left-hand section. So this element properties tab, whether I click on a section or a specific field on our form, it's going to show me what I can do to that section or to that field. All right, so we've got our login section. Moving on from our login section, we're going to move into our membership application section. This is where we're going to be building out the fields that we're asking of your members. We're going to come to that in just a moment, but this is the body of your form. Then we have some other by default built-in sections, a summary section. The summary section will allow your members to review the fields that you've asked them and review the information that they provided to you. So what we're doing right now is just determining, okay, yes, we want them to review the summary section, so we're turning it on, and we want them to be able to review any of the fields that we have included in the summary section so far. We're going to be seeing this continue to build out as we add more fields to the form, and we'll want to come back here at the end once we're done creating the form. We're going to come back in here and add more of these fields to the summary section for them to be able to summarize. The next section we have is the payment section. I'm going to click properties for this. We always want to make sure we've got your payment processor set up and your invoice template. So we talked about invoice templates yesterday, and it looks like we're still missing some. We need one that says new members, and we would choose the new members invoice template for this one. Alan, did you have any remaining questions on those invoice templates? Uh-oh, Alan, did we lose you? Can you hear me?
No,
There
I'm
you are.
sorry. Did you want me to set up that template?
Yep, so remember you were supposed to finish those invoice templates from our training yesterday?
Oh, okay. And now I haven't had a chance to get to that. I
Okay,
started, you didn't get to this form part, but you were gonna, you showed me how to do the notifications, the first part of it.
So the notifications, those invoice templates tie into the forms. And so the first part is going to financial and invoices and setting up the invoice template by going to that invoice templates tab and creating additional invoice templates. Then we can link those up to our forms, but first they have to be created. So this is where what we covered yesterday. Well, this is where you create those invoice templates.
Could we set that up real quick without getting fancy? I could double back and add to it.
Yep, I can just call this new members, but you'll need to create some additional. This doesn't really matter. There's that footer information where the notes go in. That's the notes field. And then we'll just turn these on. But you would want to come in here and probably customize this verbiage.
Correct.
But now we've got it turned on. So now I can go back into my form list. Back into the membership application. Scroll into that payment section. And I can choose new members. Okay. And then the last piece that we have is the confirmation section. If I click on this field that we see right here, you can edit the confirmation page. So when your members submit on the confirmation or submit their form, they're going to see this verbiage pop up. You guys will probably want to put something a little bit more customized in here. But if I click on the properties tab, I can also set up a confirmation email. Now this is really cool for a couple of reasons. One, it can act as a receipt for your member, but when we turn this on and edit the confirmation email, you'll want to put in some verbiage, a recap of the information they provided. You can even use this merge data tool at the bottom of the editor down here and merge in the fields that they provided to you. So you could merge in their first name and their last name. You could even merge in what member type they choose and so on. So this can act as a receipt for your member, but you can also BCC yourself on this. So you guys don't have to come into the member clicks all the time to be seeing if you guys are getting, if you're getting new members. Instead, you'll get a copy of this receipt straight to your own personal email. So you would just want to put your email address right in here. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? I love this tool.
That makes sense.
Awesome. So I'm going to save this. So for every form that I create for you guys, and I'll send you your completed forms probably this afternoon. For every form that I create for you guys, you'll always want to make sure that you're setting up the summary section, the payment section, and the confirmation section. So for those forms I create, you'll still want to come in here and just make sure that those look good to you guys, that the right invoice template's being selected, that the confirmation email is written the way that you want it to be. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And those are all the sections that make up this membership application. Before we keep moving forward, any questions on those different sections I just reviewed? Oh.
I don't think so, but now we're going to plug in the fields, right?
Almost. One more thing I want to go through first. So we've been paying attention here to that there's this element properties tab. Anytime I click on that, on a field in our form, anytime I click on the properties section of our membership section or any of the sections, we've got some element properties that we can customize. Then we've got a form settings tab. So element properties, what we change in element properties is affecting one field or one section. Anything we change under the form settings tab is changing everything for the form. So anything under form settings applies to the entire form. So we've got the name of our form. You guys want to call this new membership application, so I've just updated that. That applies to the whole form because it's the name of the entire form. Form description is something that you guys could add in, but once again, it's just optional. The form alias, that's what I used when I was showing you guys what your form looks like. The form alias is just what comes after the / of your form. So that's the name of your form. We can publish your form or unpublish it from here. We can also archive your form from this area. Of course, that's affecting the entire form. You can have a form expiration date. For a membership application, you wouldn't want one. But if you had an event registration, you could create an expiration date. All right, you can edit permissions. You'll see this permissions pop up a lot. Editing permissions determines who gets to see either a particular section or field, or in this case, since it's under the form settings tab, who even gets to see this form, like who gets to see this form at all. So we would want anybody to be able to see this form. The next two items, date-based pricing and discount codes. We cannot use date-based pricing. We cannot use discount codes on membership applications, but they can be used on any other type of form. For example, an event registration form, you could set up early bird pricing, or if you had an event that sponsors were coming to, you might want them to register through the event registration, but you might want to give them a discount code, maybe like sponsor in all caps, and when they type that in on the payment page, it might zero out their balance. So that's how a discount code could be used. Lastly, we've got this forward URL, and as far as date-based pricing and discount codes go, these are kind of difficult to use without a real-life example. But what I do want to mention is I want to make sure you guys know that we can do those things, because you may have a form you need created one day, and you might forget. You know, you might. I want you to remember that we can do this, but you might forget how to actually use it, or you might need help navigating how to use it. So you can call into our help team, or if you're still with me, and I can help you guys walk through how to use those fields. And then lastly, the forward URL. When somebody completes the form, they're going to be going back to your home page by default. If you guys want to navigate them to a different page, you would just want to put in whatever URL that you want them to go to once they've completed the form in this area down here at the bottom.
If we leave it blank, it just goes to the home, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. That's the default. All right, and that's everything under the form settings tab. So the big difference that I want you guys to know right now is anything under element properties, that's affecting one section, one field. Everything under form settings, this is affecting the entire form.
Ooh, I
now,
see elements.
Do what?
I saw the tab for add form elements.
And now we're ready to use it. So now we're going to select add form elements.
That got me excited.
Now, and this is pretty cool. This is pretty straightforward. Something I want to mention before we keep moving forward. This member type for our membership application, we need to determine what member types your members can choose from. I would imagine they could choose any member type except for admin. Does that sound correct?
That's correct.
So that's going to be the drop down of what they see when they're applying. All right, now we're ready to start adding in some fields. So by default, it asks them for their name. Then the next question you have is credentials. So under our add form elements, built-in and custom attributes, these two should sound pretty familiar. We've talked a lot about built-in attributes. We've talked a lot about custom attributes. Built-in attributes are things like physical address, email address, phone number. Custom attribute would be anything that we saw in your database that needed to be added to the form, or I'm sorry, that needed to be added to member clicks for you guys. So credentials was one of those. You've asked for credentials on the form in the example you gave me, so I can just add that to our form. Now, these selections may need a little bit of cleanup. So we're going to have to talk about how we can do that in just a little bit. But for right now, all I did to add credentials in is grab and drag and drop it on the form. Now, if I want to make this credentials piece required, I can just toggle on required. Notice we're under that element properties tab. And now we've got a little red asterisk added so that they have to fill out their credentials. It doesn't look like you have it required on the form you sent me, so I can just leave this turned off.
Correct.
And if for some reason we decided we wanted to delete credentials off the form, down at the bottom, we can just select delete. But we do want it, of course, so I'm going to add it back on.
So
all right.
You just click drag and drop, right?
That's all you got to do. That's right.
Click, hold, drag and drop. Okay.
All right. Then we've got employer. Employer is the same. That's add form elements. It's a built-in because we call that organization, or we could call that organization. I'm going to grab organization and drop it on the form, but I don't want this to say organization. I want it to say employer. So I'm going to change the label name. Now, the export name, we have the ability to export your form submissions. The export name is the column header on the spreadsheet that you export. So whatever the label reads, you should always update the export name as well.
Okay.
So that way that information makes sense on the Excel spreadsheet. All right, then you have referred by. I'm going to go see if that's a custom attribute, and I don't see it. Do you need the referred by field to show up in your members' profiles, or do you just need it for the membership application submission?
Referred by to show up in a member profile, or just the app? What do you think, Carol?
I don't even know why we have that. What does that mean? Refer by. Oh, like a name?
Yeah, if another member refers that person and they join, as a result of that person referring them over, I suspect that's what it is.
I don't see the value of that, so I guess you could just leave it in the background for the board.
Well, yeah, if we wanted to thank that person for referring that other member, the new member, whatever.
Yeah.
What, Adrian? How would that apply?
So say that one more time.
Say the board wanted to keep track of that and send thank you notes to the people who referred.
Oh, well, that sounds like a one-time thing to me. It doesn't sound like something you guys would be needing in somebody's profile to review down the road. Sounds like you just need it for when that member joins, so then you can see who to send a welcome letter, a thank you letter to. Yeah, so it sounds like it's going to be. Go ahead.
So it'd be on our new member form and could be part of that email that comes to us, right?
Exactly, but we wouldn't create a custom attribute for it. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with this is a custom attribute. If it's something we wanted to save in the member's profile forever, we would want to create a custom attribute. If it's just something we need for this form submission, we're just going to add it as a form field. So that's the difference between built-in and custom attributes and form fields. Built-in and custom attributes will collect the information from the field and store it in the member's profile so that you can access it forever, ever, and ever. Whereas the form field is just going to be housed on the form submission. So I don't want to get to form fields quite yet. I want to get a little bit more practice with built-in and custom attributes. So we're going to come back to the referred by field. But how about job title? That's a custom attribute. I'm going to grab and drag. Job type, add form elements, job type. I'm grabbing and dragging. This might need to be cleaned up too. Email. Email is a built-in attribute. Grab and drag. This is required, so I'm going to use my drop down this time to make it required. Phone and address. Those are both built-in attributes as well. So I'm going back to my built-ins. Phone, going to make it required, and address. And we're going to make it required. Now, do you guys really collect the home email and the home address, or would you like to call these something different?
They really, I think we really do collect that, because sometimes that's what we're looking for is the preferred address, right?
Yeah, well, I've seen on the spreadsheets, they do actually have both home and organization address or work address. But if we have the organization and we have their email, Carol, do we need both addresses? I'd almost prefer just the home address.
Yeah, I actually like to call it the preferred address, because depending on who they are, like I like to get everything related to the association at my home, but others may want to get it at their work. So I would just call it preferred address and leave it.
Okay, sounds good to me.
And just have the one.
Just a single address, yeah, good.
Awesome. So in the future, if you guys ever see something that needs to be changed with your built-in attributes, the way that you change this is I'm going to go to database and attributes. We're going to your physical address. I'm going to edit the settings, and instead of home, I'm going to call this preferred. And I'm going to hit save. Now when I go back to form and form list, and I go back to your membership application, I'm going to select edit. If I look at your home or the physical address now, it says preferred because that's what we just typed in.
Cool.
How about email? Would you want that to be preferred as well?
Yes, I think so.
Cool.
That would be my recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Because some people give their work and some people give their personal.
Got it. So we're going to save. Okay. Form list. And edit. Cool. All right. So that kind of completes all of the built-in and custom attributes. Now let's talk a little bit about form fields. So these are more generic fields. Yep, go ahead.
Go back to the built-in and the custom, because so if we like built-in now is address, contact name, you got all those, and go and click on custom. Those are the ones we put in. So if we want to drag and drop a field over, what do we do again? We click on the name in there and just move it over?
Yeah, so let's say that you wanted to add student ID. I'm just grabbing it and literally dragging it, and it'll tell me exactly where to add it.
Okay, because we do want, now we are able to move those things around on the right-hand side, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, and how do we do that?
If you wanted student ID, we would just grab and drag it up. Maybe we want it all the way at the top.
Okay.
I'm just dragging it up. Is student ID something you would want to add?
Well, what I wanted is if it's a new member and they're selecting student type, ideally I would like a pop-up to come up and say a school name, and that's one of the custom, school name and school ID. Yeah. Well, no, not Yeah, I'd like them to pop up for both of those.
So that's where we can use those permissions to allow us to accomplish that. So like if student ID should pop up, if I click on this field, I can use my permissions. And if they choose to register as a student member type, then they will see that field. If they choose any other member type, they will not see it.
For that student ID. Okay.
So school name.
Yep.
Same thing. I'm just going to select permissions, and nobody will see it unless they choose to be a student.
Oh, okay. So that avoids having a pop-up window.
Exactly. So the way that'll look is, so I'm a new member. I'm coming here and registering. I'm going to register, putting in my password, which it can be as simple as the number 1. Now it's going to ask me what member type do I want to be. I'm going to say I want to be an active member type. Here's my field. I can choose to pay for 1 year or 2 years.
Huh.
Name, credentials, all this info I'm filling out. But let's say I want to be a student. $25, my name, school name, student ID. We didn't see those a moment ago because we don't have it applied to show up if I choose anything other than student. See how those permissions work? Make sense?
Yeah. Then a problem that we have is people that are not members are coming in here and they're registering as members in our current system. Now, how could we avoid that here, if at all?
Oh, if they're already a member, they're registering again? Is that what you're saying?
No. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's for meeting registration. Never mind.
Gotcha. Were you going to say if they're not a member and they sometimes non-members are registering for meeting registrations?
As members, yeah.
So they won't be able to because it's going to ask them to log in, and with the login credentials, it'll recognize them if they are an existing member or if they're a new member. If they're a new member,
okay, that's right.
It'll create a new profile for them as a prospect.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So one thing that I didn't mention to y'all is you technically can turn the login section off, but you really always want to have it on because that's what prevents duplicate form submissions, or it's what allows member type pricing, or it's what recognizes if the person is a member, or if they're a non-member, it'll either give them different pricing or it won't let them see the form at all. It'll say, you know, you as a non-member, you are not eligible for this form or something like that. Okay.
Can we go back and add to the membership application a HIMA ID?
Yeah. Now that apply to to everybody?
No, that would typically, well, it's going to be not required, but yeah, some of our students can actually have a HIMA ID and members. So no, it would be for all 3 member types.
Awesome. And it sounds like maybe it should be up here with the
up
school
at the top,
info.
yeah.
Okay.
And
awesome.
That's going to be not required. Okay.
Now, if somebody chooses student, is school name and student ID required?
Yeah, I do want to see. I want we have members, employed members that are registering as students as well. So the reason I put that in there is if they try to register as a student, I want to force them to put in their school name and their ID.
So we can make these required, but it'll only be required if they choose student. It won't be required for anybody else.
Correct.
Got it. Perfect. Okay, awesome. All right, now I want to go back to the add form elements and talk a little bit about form fields now. So we've talked about built-in and custom attributes and how those are going to communicate with the members' profiles and store the information in the profiles, or the other side of that is if you've already collected this information on the members, it's going to auto-populate into the form. So they won't have to fill it out again if you've already collected the information on them. Now, form fields, These are only for the form submission. So an example of that for us would be a referred by. So if we wanted to ask, form fields are really going to be useful for like registration forms. So if I was going to ask, okay, you're coming to our meeting, we're going to give you guys lunch. What lunch option do you want? A ham sandwich, a turkey sandwich, or a veggie sandwich? You don't need to know 10 years from now that Bob had a ham sandwich at your February luncheon, right? You would only need that for the form submission. So that's where we would use a form field.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of these are really intuitive. Like country is just the drop down of all the countries. I never have a good example for this one. Maybe like, what country should our 2018 conference be in? I mean, that's a super silly example, but that's just a drop down of countries. So it's hard to kind of know how you guys would use that. But do you see what I'm?
Yeah. I understand the field. We probably wouldn't, but like an international conference, I could see why that would be interesting.
Yeah, but there's some, I've gotten a couple, like I had an African Diaspora Networking Association, and they asked, what countries have you visited in Africa? For them, that was a great field, but for most associations, you won't use a country. Now, date, that's just going to be a drop down, it's just going to be a box where when they go to type in, it's going to bring up a calendar, and you can select a specific date. Same thing, I don't have a super great example for that one, but that's how this would be used. Okay. A file is going to allow them to upload a file. So you could say something along the lines of upload your resume here. If you wanted to collect students' resumes or something like that. Image, same thing. It's going to have them just upload an image. I'm going to skip over these two for just a second. We're going to go to state. State is the same as country, but it's a drop down of all the states. And then a text box is just an open text box. That's what we would use for that referred by field. So right above job type and job title, we're going to bring in state. I'm sorry. I mean text. Bear with me here. Text. And we would say referred by.
Huh.
We could say like list the name of the individual that referred you.
Is there a limit to the number you can type into that label?
There is no limit.
Okay.
Well, at least no limit that I have found, and I've put in full paragraphs before.
Okay.
I added this little sentence because I feel like you can never be descriptive enough with your members, just from my experience for you guys. Of course, I can delete this out if you feel like it's kind of like a DOI thing, like referred by. Well, yeah, duh. But do you want me to leave this little sentence that I added in here for you, or do you want me to delete it out?
That's fine.
Okay.
I would leave it in, but I'm not sure you need that sentence on the export name if we were to export it, right?
Ah, good point, because you guys would know what that means. That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point, Carol. Awesome. So that's how we added in the referred by, and that's not necessarily required. Something I see on membership applications, if you guys would be interested in it, I see a lot of how did you hear about us? And then give them a selection set, so social media, conference, a friend, something like that, something that you guys could think about adding. I did skip over.
Now, if we do, how did you hear about us? How would we give them those? How do we give them a drop-down selection choice?
Yeah, great question.
If it's a form field.
If it was a form field, I could bring in the selection set. Let's do it at the bottom so we don't get confused here. We didn't talk about number or selection sets, so we're going to talk about those now. They're special. I'll tell you why. So we could say, how did you hear about us? And we'd want to make sure we're updating our export name. And we can add our selections and option limits. So we could say, social media, conference, friend, and I can save these.
Were you hitting add or were you just hitting enter?
I was hitting enter, but you can also hit add. My apologies.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, this is an example. This is an example you can use, but let's maybe think about a different example. What days of the conference will you be attending? Now, this is special because it can also be a price field. Notice we have our price field option right here. If I turn this price field on, I can now edit selections, option limits, and base prices. And we could say, you know, Monday, Tuesday, you know, what day of the conference are you coming? Wednesday. If they come on Monday, or the whole, yeah, or we could say full conference. If they come Monday, you may have some really awesome speakers. So they may have to pay $350 just to come to the conference on Monday. Tuesday, maybe it's more of networking and meet and greet, maybe only one speaker, only $100. If they want to come Wednesday, it's the same thing, only $100. Or they could come to the full conference for $400. Now, another thing that we have here that we're adding in a limit. So you may have a limited number of tickets that you can sell. Like for the Monday conference, you may only have 400 seats. Tuesday, you may only have 200 tickets available. Wednesday, you may only have 200 tickets available. Now, out of the 400, 200, and 200, these aren't going to be subtracting from the full conference. It's something that the system cannot do. But you may have allotted 100 full conference tickets in addition. So once those limits are reached, those options will be grayed out. So 400 people.
Go ahead.
Nope, you're fine. You go ahead.
I wanted to know what if they need to pick Monday and Tuesday?
I love it. So what we have, if we scroll down a little bit, are display types. Anything with single select means they can only choose one option. Multiple select means they can choose two. So they can choose more than one option here.
Perfect.
And it'll tally up the totals.
Wow.
So now I'm going to throw in something else into this that this can do, and that's member type pricing. So if I select member type pricing, what this means is members get a discount. So if somebody is registering as an active member, corporate member, and a student member, we're going to add that column, and we're going to create the exception. They only have to pay $200 to come to the Monday conference, $50 to come Tuesday, $50 to come Wednesday, or they could come the whole thing for $250. We can even go further and say, I mean, prospects and public, that would really be the base pricing that we added. So I probably wouldn't need to add in another column, but we could.
How many columns do you get to have?
As many as you want. You can add as many as you want. So if every single member type had different pricing, maybe students separate. Update column, I can add student.
We probably have member, non-member, and student for us, but.
So maybe they're paying 300, these updated, I need to go back and fix them, but you know, 300, we can give them their own pricing. However the individual is logged in as, we'll show them that respective pricing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Excellent.
So that was all done under what days of the conference will you be attending?
Yep.
And that's, can you scroll on the element properties? Can you scroll up, go up? Yeah. What days? So we turned on enable, price field. We turned on member type and edit payment.
Now, I'm glad that you saw that. Anytime you have a field on your form that is collecting money, so any type of monetary field, you will always need to make sure you're editing the payment processor and revenue account, this big long button down here.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably, I'd say 90% of my associations miss this. You have to tell that money what bucket it needs to go into through your revenue accounts. So if this was if this was part of your, meeting registration fees, you would want to make sure you're telling that money it needs to go into your meeting registration fees revenue account. This invoice line item will also be the line item on the invoice. So you wouldn't want the line item on the invoice to say what days of the conference will you be attending. You would want it to say something along the lines of conference fees, because that's what the line item on the invoice is going to read.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, except this for the new member, that would be the revenue bucket would be different.
Yeah, exactly. But just if this was for a conference, for my example's sake. All right, so there's one other field that I want to show you guys, and that is, going back to form fields, number. Number is also special because it can also be used as a monetary field. So number itself as a field can only collect numbers, no special characters, no spaces, unless you're collecting somebody's social security number. I don't know how, I mean, maybe the NGHIMA ID or something like that. Usually, though, this isn't super helpful because there are some type of space or dash or special character or something. But we also have that magic little price field button down here. So if I turn on that this is being used as a price field, my first option is this kind of times a unit number. So this is used usually as how many tickets do you need to our February luncheon? And maybe each ticket wouldn't be $1, but maybe each ticket's $25. If I put in the number 5, it's going to do 5 times 25, and that will be the line item total on my invoice.
Gotcha.
Wow, okay.
But the other version of this, not a number input, but it can also be used as a currency input. So if I toggle on currency input instead, this is just somebody can put in however much money they want to. So this a lot of times is, how much would you like to donate?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing though, it's so crucial to edit the payment process, or you wouldn't want it to say number. You'd want to make sure this said donation amount, the revenue account. Okay.
Okay, this is cool.
Now, as I've been adding all these fields, I'm going to go ahead and delete this out. As I've been adding these fields, our summary section, if I edit, has been getting all of these fields added that we want them to summarize. So I'm going to select all of these again.
So exactly, what is the summary field that lets them look at everything?
I'll show you.
And I'm sorry, but I have to drop off for another call.
Okay.
But I'll finish listening to the web recording when you send it out.
Perfect.
Awesome. And we'll talk to you soon, Miss Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks.
So now that we've completed our form, if I put in all my information in here, school name, I'm going to say it's member click, student ID, NGHIMA ID, credentials, consultant, phone. There's my email at auto.
This is the new member application?
This is still the new member application. All right, then I would hit next. So I filled out all the fields on the form. Now I'm ready to hit next. Here's the summary section. So it's just giving me a summary of the stuff that I've completed. If there are any pricing pieces attached to it, it'll show us the pricing.
Okay. Wow.
And then we would hit next, and they would put in their credit card info.
And all that stuff is, you guys preset all that payment stuff, correct?
Exactly. We're not able to change it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got Hart sent me the application. I got to fill that monstrosity out over the weekend.
I know that one's a beast.
Well, most of it's terms, but it's still 4 pages of stuff. But all right, wow.
So this is a pretty robust training, but it's really fun because this can do so much. So the only other thing that I wanted to point out to you is this last tab, which is presentation. These are literally just how the form presents itself. So if you messed up in the very beginning, checking what boxes, like what type of form this is, we can always drag in an event section or drag in that general section. This also allows you to use things like a horizontal line. It's literally just a horizontal line. These are very straightforward. It's just to act as a separator. White space is just another form of a separator. It's literally just white space between your fields. Page break, these are usually built in. So this is an example of one down here. But if you had a survey where you asked like 20 questions, you could add a page break between every 5. So then they'd fill out 5 questions and hit next, 5 questions and hit next, versus having to scroll through 20 questions on one page.
Okay. So
and
that's all on the Add Form Elements tab. There's the form fields and the presentation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Presentation is just display type items. I got you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Label is something that you probably will be using commonly. A label is just it's like our version of what we call a text box. So you can just edit this label text, and you can put in disclaimers, descriptions, instructions. You might want to say, you know, please note this. I see this one a lot. We will not be issuing refunds 30 days prior to the event, or something like that. So it's literally just a text, just like a text box. So I would like to be able to this afternoon. You've laid out your forms so well for me that I should be able to get these whipped up pretty quickly. So my goal for myself is to get these done and sent to you before the end of today. I do just want to remind you that when you're testing them, just test using an incognito window. It's the easiest way. If the system recognizes you as an admin, it gets kind of screwy, and sometimes you'll get error messages and stuff because the system's like, you're an admin. Why are you registering for membership? You're an admin. Why are you registering for this event? So accessing an incognito window, it'll just be in your browser. In Chrome, there'll either be this like arrow with an orange dot or red dot around it. It could also be 3 dots stacked vertically. And when you click on it, it says new incognito window.
And how do we get to that new incognito window?
It's in your browser. Mine is this little red dot with a white arrow inside of it.
Okay.
And then new incognito. But yours might be 3 dots stacked on top of each other. It just depends on what version of Chrome you have. And you'll take the links that I give you and copy and paste them in here. And then when you get to the login, don't log in with your admin credentials. Just put in a fake email address. It doesn't have to be legit. And then create your password and then go through as if you were a new user coming to the site.
So I could test a new member application and test the meeting registration.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you said if you set up these forms, I still have to go in and do all this touch-up, correct?
I would like for you to check the summary section, the payment section, and the confirmation section for all of them. Mainly the payment section is so crucial.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So you still, yesterday when we were talking about the invoice template and the invoice settings, you want me to actually, we did together just now the new member template, correct?
Correct.
So
you should have gotten, yep, you'll need to go in, and I sent you this little email yesterday, if I can ever get to it, and it just says, thank you so much for your time. Okay, these are the things you'll want to focus on in the database. Video 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right. The attribute and the profile should be done, hopefully. I did the attribute yesterday, and Carol finished the profile today. I redid it after we spoke yesterday, and hopefully Carol got hers correct the first time. But so
Okay.
the default, but you don't want me to touch the default invoice though, right?
Correct. I just want you to, you're going to list out all the different types of invoices MemberClicks could create for you,
Okay.
and then create an invoice template for those and make sure the verbiage that you have in the emails makes sense.
An invoice template for that, and that'll be all the notification type stuff, right?
Yes. And if
And
you
then,
get confused, there's an article that'll walk you through it.
right.
See, this article will help.
Invoice settings is just the logo and the information, organizational information.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get
that's
that done. I'll get that done tonight, today, and tomorrow.
awesome.
Whew. Yeah, I'm really anxious to see a new member application works.
Cool.
Hey, do you have another meeting coming up real quick, or
Okay.
you got another second?
Oh, I have a second. Yeah, go ahead.
The one thing I want, Carol addressed this, she got us off track at the first meeting when she brought up volunteers. But
Yes.
to me, that's an important issue, and I'd like to try to figure out a way. Let me describe it to you, and you think about it and tell me how you think we can handle it. I have a data or Excel spreadsheet of volunteers, and I've assigned them into different committees. But when they come to a meeting, we want to be able to, we want to know that they're at that meeting and they're volunteering, so that at the end of the year we can actually award certificates to everyone who volunteered, and also look at their total volunteerism and pick a volunteer of the year winner. So somehow we need to track that member came and volunteered. So if that's something you can think about, I'm not quite sure. This system is all new to me, so I'm not quite sure how to handle that.
Could you
Okay.
send me, could you send me the volunteer spreadsheet that you've been keeping so far? Could you do that?
Sure.
That'll kind of allow me to look at the fields and such. And so I'll know a little bit more about what you're looking for. But send that to me, and then I can really put my brain on it. I'll have it in my inbox, and it may take me a couple days, but I'll think about that and how we can incorporate that into the database.
Well, it's not that's I just have their name and their email address and maybe their phone number, and that's it. But the important thing is when they show up to volunteer, that we can record that and go back and review it, so that if they were at three of the 4 meetings, we know that, and we can give them a certificate. If they're just at one meeting, we know that we can still give them their certificate. And then again, use that data to pick a volunteer of the year. So I can send you the spreadsheet, but it's just a matter of logging in somehow that that person came and volunteered.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be logging in. So the way that we could accomplish that is having some type of like RSVP, where they would RSVP, okay, yes, I'm coming to this event to volunteer. And then you guys can actually mark, you may want to have a sign-in sheet. So what you could do is search by who completed the RSVP of the trash pickup volunteer. You can export their names and their emails, and then when they come to the volunteer, have them sign in. That way you can go back into the system and mark who actually attended and who maybe no-showed. So somebody might have RSVP'd, but they might end up no-showing. You don't want to give them credit. So you can mark who attended and who no-showed. And you'll be able to search on that information in the system. If you want a field in their profile that you could just look at, like a custom attribute, just to know, gosh, I mean, you could look at the RSVPs for the form submissions, and that'd be pretty accurate. But if you want like a custom attribute, we could say 2018 volunteer opportunities and list underneath it all the volunteer opportunities that were available to them, and check off each one that they came to by using a custom attribute selection set. So that's kind of what comes to the top of my mind just off the bat. I think you'd have the information you need just by who registered through the RSVP. But if maybe think about if you want if you want it in their profile in a custom attribute, we could do that as well. You're just going to have to create a new custom attribute every year to house all that information. I feel like I'm talking in circles. Does that make sense?
You did lose me, so.
Well, maybe just send me what you have, or maybe send me a list of all the volunteer events that you think you'll have for 2018. If you did that, then I can mock up what I'm talking about and show you exactly. Could you maybe do that part?
Yeah, and it'll just be 4 events. So.
Okay.
Actually, it might be 5. It might include the statewide meeting as well. But okay, I could do that definitely.
Yeah, just send me a list of all the volunteer events. And actually I was thinking it'd be like 30. So the fact that it's like 4 or 5, even under 10, that would be super manageable. So send that to me. I'll create it, and then I'll just show you what I'm talking about, because I know it's hard to picture without seeing it.
Okay, perfect.
All right, awesome. Well, you just let me know if you need any. Oh, do we have our next call scheduled?
Yeah, I believe it's next Friday. Let's see.
I kind of like to have one before then. How about you?
The more the better. Let's see. I got next Friday. The next 2 Fridays at 2 p.m. Next Friday at 2 p.m. Might be a little noisy because I'm having some windows installed, but we'll bear through that. But if you want to meet prior to Friday, that's fine by me. I can't. Carol is very, very busy. She's actually an HIM director type.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Her schedule is very, very tight, but as long as we record it, she'll listen to it. So as far as